Today, we are diving deep into one of the great puzzles of the ancient world, Maya astronomy. We're going to uncover how a civilization, with absolutely no modern tools, managed to map the heavens with a precision that still blows minds today. I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? How on earth did they do it? No telescopes, no computers, nothing but their own eyes. It seems impossible. But the answer, well, it's hidden in the incredible clues they left behind for us. You see, the Maya didn't have high-tech gadgets, but they had something just as powerful. First, they had patience, like unimaginable patience, watching the sky night after night for generations. Second, they kept meticulous records of everything they saw. And third, they built architecture that was basically a giant stone computer designed to remember and point to key moments in the cosmos. So, to figure this out, we're going to conduct our own little archaeological investigation. Here's the plan. First, we'll set the scene. Then, we'll examine our two biggest clues, their written texts and their incredible stone buildings. After that, we'll peek inside the modern archaeologist's toolkit to see how they prove this stuff, before we finally put it all together. Okay, so let's get right into it. How did these ancient skywatchers become some of the most expert astronomers in history without any of our modern advantages? The investigation starts right now with our first major clue. And this first piece of evidence, oh, it is a game changer. You could call it a smoking gun. It's pretty much a written confession that proves beyond a doubt that the Maya were systematically tracking the cosmos, and it's called the Dresden Codex. Now, you have to understand, the Dresden Codex is one of only a few Maya books that survived the centuries, so it's incredibly precious. It's this beautiful, fragile document made of bark paper, and it's filled with complex tables and almanacs. And deep inside its pages, there's one number that just keeps popping up over and over again. 584. Just burn that number into your brain for a second. 584. It appears again and again in the Codex, and it is the absolute key to understanding just how brilliant the Maya were. So, what in the world does it mean? Well, it's the synodic cycle of the planet Venus. In plain English, that's the 584 days it takes for Venus to complete its entire pattern in our sky. From appearing as a morning star, disappearing, and then showing up again. And get this, the Dresden Codex contains tables that track this exact cycle over a period of 104 years. This is not just casual stargazing, folks. This is long-term, systematic science. So why this obsession with Venus? I mean, it's just a dot in the sky, right? Well, not to the Maya. To them, Venus was this powerful, sometimes dangerous character on the cosmic stage. Its cycle of appearing, disappearing, and reappearing was seen as this grand celestial drama. They linked its movements to specific gods, to predictions of danger, and even used it to time rituals and, to time war. So this wasn't just science for science's sake. Tracking Venus was a matter of political and spiritual survival. So, the Dresden Codex is our Exhibit A. It's just irrefutable proof. It shows us that the Maya weren't just watching the sky, they were recording its cycles, organizing the data, and using it for long-term planning. As far as evidence goes, it doesn't get much more solid than this. Now let's move to our second clue. All right, so our second clue isn't written on paper, it's carved in stone. We're looking at a building at the famous site of Chichen Itza called El Caracol. People love to call it the observatory. But as you're about to see, that simple name hides a really fascinating scientific debate. Okay, here's where we see this crucial shift in thinking. The popular, sort of tourist brochure idea is that El Caracol was an observatory where they'd go stargazing every night. But the more rigorous scientific view sees it differently. It's more of an alignment device, a building specifically designed to frame very particular celestial events on very specific days. Especially events related to, yep, you guessed it, Venus. And this really reflects the scientific consensus. As the pioneering archaeoastronomer Anthony Avinis points out, a building like this was never just for one thing. It was a multi-purpose hub, weaving together ritual, politics, and observation all at once. The alignments are there, but their purpose was much more complex than just a simple observatory. So, what does El Caracol really tell us? Well, it strongly suggests that the Maya intentionally built structures with sightlines that pointed to important astronomical events, especially the movements of Venus. But, and this is a big but, It does not prove that every single window was some kind of precision instrument. It's a witness made of stone, but its testimony has to be interpreted very, very carefully. And that brings us to the big, critical question. How do scientists separate an intentional alignment from just, a random coincidence? How do they actually test these claims? Let's open up the modern archaeologist toolkit and take a look. It's not guesswork, it's a rigorous, step-by-step process. First, they measure the building's orientation precisely. Second, they have to define exactly what they're looking for. Is it the sunrise on the solstice? Venus on the horizon? Third, they use software to basically time travel, reconstructing what the sky looked like from that exact spot hundreds of years ago. Fourth, and this is the most important one, they have to ask, could this just be a fluke? Fifth, they check their work against other data, like the Dresden Codex. And finally, they have to be totally honest about what they don't know for sure. Because here's the thing, the greatest enemy of archaeoastronomy isn't a lack of evidence, it's coincidence. If you have enough windows in a building and enough stars in the sky, eventually you're going to find a match for something. The real challenge is finding patterns that are statistically so unlikely that they just can't be random. And this is exactly why you'll see such careful language in scientific papers. When a researcher says an alignment is consistent with something, or that the evidence suggests a connection, that's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of intellectual honesty. It shows they're respecting the evidence and not just jumping to the most exciting conclusion. It's good science. Okay, so we've looked at the written record, we've examined the stone witness, and we've seen the scientific methods used to test them. Now it's time to bring it all home and put the clues together to solve the case. When we lay out all the clues, you can see how they have different strengths. The Dresden Codex is so powerful because it's explicit. It literally says 584 days. You can't argue with that. Its main weakness is just trying to pin those ancient events to our exact modern calendar. Then you have Caracol, which is physically compelling, but you always have that risk of coincidence. And then there are other patterns, like so-called E-droops, whose strength comes from sheer numbers, seeing the same building pattern repeated at dozens of sites. And that right there leads us to the final conclusion. The most powerful, most convincing arguments in this field don't rely on just one clue. They're the ones that weave everything together. The hard proof from the texts, the physical evidence from the buildings, and the rigorous testing from modern science. When the stone points to the exact same cosmic event that the book describes, that's when you know you've found something real. It really proves the Maya weren't just stargazers. They were true codebreakers of the cosmos. And it leaves us with one final amazing question to think about. If this is what we've managed to uncover so far, what other incredible cosmic secrets are still out there, just waiting for us to find them, locked away in ancient texts in stone?